Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode here on Bully Whispers. Today is going to be a shorter episode because it is meant more to stimulate a discussion regarding Walter White's level of responsibility for the plane crash, and I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. Peripheral damage is focused on much more in Breaking Bad than in shows like The Sopranos, and the idea of responsibility for damages not directly caused by someone is emphasized by the fact that the watchful eye enters Walter's life as a result of the crash, but how responsible was Walt actually? Of course, the answer will vary person to person, but the crux of it will come down to their views on positive versus negative obligations. Now, there is a bit more nuance to these ideas than I'm going to get into, but essentially, a positive obligation is an obligation to help someone, while a negative obligation is just an obligation not to harm them, but we will get back to that in a bit. To start with, there are several layers of responsibility before we get to Walt, starting with Jane's dad. Now, I don't work in aviation, so I'm pretty sure there were other safety precautions that failed. Maybe I'm wrong, but I doubt it's completely on air traffic control. That being said, I think it's safe to say that he is the most responsible of anyone we know, and the only one that is really directly responsible. Next, we get to the first layer of those indirectly responsible, which brings us to Jane's death, where Walt comes in, but not yet. The person most responsible for Jane's death is Jane. She is the one who introduced heroin into the equation to begin with, and was more than likely the one who knew where to get it. We don't know whose idea it was for them to do it one last time before leaving town instead of flushing it, but either way, Jane would carry the brunt of the responsibility for her own death. It's at this point that you might think we get to Walt, but not yet. There is still another layer of responsibility before we get to him, and that's the dealer that sold it to her. Walt isn't in the heroin business, and Jane already had the heroin before Walt dropped off the money, so he didn't even finance it. Now it's at this point that we finally get to Walt, and even then, he didn't harm Jane, he just failed to help her. So it's here that I ask you, how responsible do you think Walt was for the crash, given that he is one direct level and two indirect levels of responsibility removed from it all of whom failed in their negative obligations, while Walt only failed to help? Well, thanks for watching another episode here on Bully Whispers. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you at the next score.